Throughout history, there has been something called conventional wisdom. By definition, this is something regarded as fact by almost everyone who hears it. In the past, conventional wisdom claimed that the Earth was flat, that dinosaurs were cold-blooded reptiles, and that the automobile would never replace the horse and buggy. As a pilot, you probably have noticed that aviation also has its share of conventional wisdom. One so-called fact, held dear by many, is that operating aircraft engines anywhere lean of peak EGT guarantees rapid engine destruction and certain failure. If you fly behind a modern piston engine, or two, you'll find the following information of particular interest. You might even find yourself changing some of your opinions about those so-called engine operating facts that you've been using for years. Interested? Well, stick around. The whole story is coming right up. In 1993, General Aviation Modifications Incorporated was formed by George Brawley and Tim Rail to create and certify some structural modifications for the Beech Bonanza. But while working with George's Bonanza, some unexpected events took place.
Shortly after I purchased this airplane, I installed a brand new IO 550 engine. And along with that engine installation, we installed a GEM 6-probe EGT engine monitor. As an engineer, it quickly dawned on me that this was not one engine, but it was 6 different engines out here running in front of me, one for each of the 6 cylinders. And they were all running at different horsepower and different fuel-air ratios instead of purring along together like one good engine should be.
We found that by making changes to the flows of the fuel injectors in his engine, we were able to significantly improve the temperature, both EGT and CHT, uniformity, and found that the engine ran noticeably smoother as well. He had a 6-probe graphic engine analyzer, and we recognized that the cylinders were not peaking uniformly, but that by adjusting the fuel flows of the injectors, we were able to obtain a much more uniform picture of the temperatures and cylinder head temperatures, exhaust gas temperatures.
Tim and George confirmed what many other pilots flying big-bore Continental engines already suspected, that under normal operating conditions and properly leaned as instructed by the manufacturer, there still is a wide disparity between cylinders in exhaust gas and cylinder head temperatures. This means that each cylinder receives a slightly different fuel-air mixture and is actually producing different amounts of power at any given mixture setting. So, in order to keep the temperatures of all cylinders well within the recommended operating range, the manufacturer recommends leaning the mixture until the leanest cylinder reaches peak EGT, and then enriching the mixture from there. In this way, the rest of the cylinders will most assuredly be running well rich of peak, using the extra rich fuel mixture to ensure adequate cylinder cooling. But why is there such a big difference in cylinder temperatures in the first place? And what, if anything, can be done about it?
Well, what we found was that there was a fairly broad misconception that the differences people had seen over time in their engines was due to an imbalance in the airflow in the induction manifold. In fact, what happens is there's a reversion of the fuel through the induction manifold. For example, fuel injector number 2 will spray its fuel, and a small percentage of that will get caught up in the induction manifold and carried forward, because these induction manifolds are what are called runner updraft style, and they run from the aft to the forward section of the plane. So the aft cylinders ran leaner than the forward cylinders.
Even the most perfectly set up fuel system is unbalanced by the occult transfer of fuel through the induction system. And that causes the front cylinders to run rich, and it causes the rear cylinders on the engine to run lean. And it's a significant difference. and we completely fixed that problem. You know, back in the middle 1960s, Continental figured out what the problem was. They decided then that fuel was cheap, they were selling lots of engines, all they could produce anyway, and they just simply never pursued this problem. We decided that fuel's not that cheap and that we do make these engines run a lot better, and so we started pursuing it, and I think Continental never really realized just exactly how much better solving this problem would make their engines run.
There were times years ago when engines were cheaper, fuel was a lot cheaper, and they didn't want to confuse the mechanics with a variety of nozzles in different cylinders.
Aircraft owners and mechanics have been swapping around stock injectors for years, and with inconsistent results. Because the stock injector nozzles have their individual fuel flows calibrated to a comparatively wide tolerance, it was pretty much a matter of luck if engine performance actually improved. And then there's the sticky question of the legality of fiddling around with injector sizes on a certified aircraft engine.
I'd been aware for a long time that there was quite a mixture imbalance in the cylinders of my engine and other Continentals as well, and had even monkeyed around a bit with swapping injectors and using a couple different sizes. So I was really pleased to hear that George Brawley down in Ada, Oklahoma had gotten interested in the same thing. And originally we both thought that it was quite legal to swap these injectors around. And George, being a lawyer, did some research and found that it really probably isn't. And we were both uncomfortable with that. So George got busy, and I'm very pleased to have STC #1 in my airplane.
You know, even if you have a brand new, perfect factory engine that has a perfectly calibrated set of factory fuel injectors in the engine with a perfect setup on the fuel system, the engine's still not going to run smooth because the front cylinders are going to be running rich, the rear cylinders are going to be running lean. The nozzles that we build and put in to that brand new perfect engine compensate for the unbalance in the fuel-air ratios, and we make it virtually perfect.
We found that in order to precisely control the fuel-air ratios of an engine, it was necessary to first understand what the inherent characteristics of the engine were. We would alter the flows of the nozzles very precisely so as to compensate for those characteristics. What we found was that the injector flows were so sensitive to that we needed to manufacture nozzles to a much higher level of precision. The injector nozzles that we currently produce are built on a flow bench that is unlike any others in the country with regard to its ability to both maintain constant pressures and very accurately set the flows to approximately a tenth of a pound per hour.
In order to build the best fuel nozzle, you've got to build the one that is the most precisely calibrated. In order to build the most precisely calibrated fuel nozzle, you've got to have a fuel bench that's better than any other fuel bench in general aviation. And this fuel bench will measure pressure down to 1/1000th of a PSI. I don't know anybody else's fuel bench in the world that's doing this kind of work that's measuring fuel pressure closer than a tenth of a PSI. We do an extremely precise job of calibrating each one of these fuel injector nozzles. And there's nobody else out there that can even begin to put together 6 fuel injector nozzles that are as precisely calibrated as what's done right here in this room.
Okay, so we now know that a ½ pound per hour difference in stock injector fuel flows are not only typical, but actually meet the engine manufacturer's specification. And we also now know that each pair of cylinders receives a slightly different fuel-air mixture due to the design of the runner updraft induction system. So how much better does the typical engine run if you can get all of the mixtures balanced? Does it really make a significant and noticeable difference? Let's take another look at that graph. In flight after flight of gathering data, GAMI confirmed that large bore TCM engines all share a typical trait. Cylinders 1 and 2 are the first to reach peak EGT during normal leaning at cruise power at around 14 gallons per hour. Cylinders 5 and 6 peak much later, at around 12 gallons per hour. And cylinders 3 and 4, they peak right in between. After balancing the fuel-air mixture in all cylinders with the precision GAMI injectors, the data gathered from subsequent test flights showed that it was now possible to have all cylinders reach peak at very nearly the same point in fuel flow. Following that logic, and verified by the uniform exhaust gas and cylinder head temperatures, each cylinder was now producing a similar amount of power at any given mixture setting. But would it even be noticeable to a pilot?
I have a V35B Bonanza, a 1982 model. I found that after installing the GAMI injectors, several very nice things happened. The first thing I did after installing the GAMI injectors was simply run the engine the same way I had been doing it, leaning to approximately 50 degrees rich of peak to get best power out of it. And I noticed at that setting that the engine was remarkably smooth, that I was saving about 1 gallon an hour in fuel flow, and it felt really good. I was very, very pleased with the GAMI injectors from that standpoint alone.
When I first started my engine for the first time with my GAMI injectors, I actually could tell right away, even taxiing and idling out, and the smoothness makes a big difference. I've only been flying now about 9 or 10 shows with my GAMI injectors, and after flying for 7 years with my Victor engine, you can't get much better than that mechanically balanced, but with the GAMI injectors, I can really tell a difference. All in all, with all the smoothness, you can't get any better than this, and it's like flying in a Singer sewing machine.
Pilots write back, call back, send us email, and tell us day by day that there's nothing else they've ever done to their engine that's done more for the engine than putting in a set of these nozzles. And that includes some people that have spent an awful lot of money on their engines. And they're just astounded by how much smoother the engines run purely as a result of placing a set of these balanced fuel injectors on their expensive engines.
It wasn't long after the GAMI injectors first appeared on the market that the aviation press took interest as well. Editor Mark Cook, writing for AOPA Pilot's Airframe and Power Plant series, followed the installation of GAMI injectors in associate editor Pete Bedell's Beach Baron. Now here's what he reported. After gathering data from the onboard Insight Instruments Gemini 1200, it was clear that the GAMIs did what they were supposed to do. The spread in fuel flow between first to peak and last to peak fell from 1.8 to 0.6 gallons per hour. What does this all mean? For one thing, you'll save fuel. Moreover, the GAMI injectors should help keep those back cylinders cool. Are there any drawbacks to the GAMI system? So far, none. The editors of the Aviation Consumer were curious about GAMI injectors as well. We contacted 5 owners who have installed GAMI injectors in TCM engines, and frankly, we were taken aback by the gushing praise heaped upon this product. All of the owners reported dramatically smoother operation at lean mixture settings and noticeably more consistent EGTs during leaning, meaning that GAMI injectors seemed to perform as claimed. Significantly, all of the owners we spoke to reported reduced fuel flows, ranging from 0.9 to 1.5 gallons per hour at equivalent power settings. We can't see how you'd go wrong with what appears to be a well-engineered, well-supported product. The Aviation Consumer was so impressed that they didn't stop there. They awarded GAMI injectors the coveted Aviation Consumer Product of the Year for 1997.
Frankly, there's nothing that you can do for your engine, for the money, that can do as much and as much good as the GAMI injectors do. They are one of the few products that you can actually put on your engine that will pay for themselves, while at the same time helping you to enjoy a smoother running engine.
When you place the order, we need to know a lot of the basics about your airplane, the engine model specifically. We'd like to know if you have any additional STCs on your engine, like turbocharging or additional instrumentation that you have. When the UPS man brings the GAMI injectors to you, these are just a direct replacement part for the original nozzles. The mechanic can exchange them just as he removes and replaces your nozzles at an annual And the 337 must be submitted to the FAA and a logbook entry made. And after that, it's fly the airplane and enjoy the smoothness.
Because each GAMI ejector is built specifically for an individual cylinder, it's important to make sure that each GAMI ejector remains only in the cylinder for which it was calibrated. Each GAMI ejector has a unique stamped serial number that also appears on the corresponding data plate, which is attached to the matching rocker box cover. From start to finish, installation of the GAMI ejectors, data plates, and paperwork should take no more than an hour or so.
Of course, the proof in any modification like this is how the airplane flies. One sure way to check any engine out there flying to see how well balanced the fuel-air ratios are is to try and run the engine on the lean side of peak.
What? Lean of peak? For years, we've heard that this just isn't done, not without risking severe engine damage from detonation and overheating. But that's not entirely true. If an engine has a closely balanced induction system, it is possible to run on the lean side of peak using air instead of fuel to provide proper cooling. And this method of operation isn't new either. The 1957 operating manual for the Curtiss-Wright TC-18 turbo compound radial engine gives precise leaning information to flight crews on this recommended practice. In cruise, pilots were instructed to use the mixture control to lean through peak and then continue leaning until engine power output was reduced by 10%. At that point, the throttle settings could be changed to normally increase or decrease power with manifold pressure. In addition to the obvious decrease in cruise fuel consumption, some of the other benefits as stated in the operating manual included low exhaust gas temperatures and low cylinder head temperature and correspondingly low cowl flap settings, which of course means less aerodynamic drag. But one of the most telling statements from this manual is, as far as the engine itself is concerned, it likes lean mixtures. The leaner, the better. Now we all know that the engines in light aircraft are a far cry from the turbo compound twin-row radials of yesteryear, but the operating principles are exactly the same.
Once I began experimenting with it, I found that there were several serendipitous side effects that came from running the GAMI ejectors. For the first time ever, I was able to lean the engine out to lean of peak, and this is something in the aviation industry that's an old wives' tale that you can't do that. And the big old radials used to run lean of peak, and I had run the big old radials lean of peak. So I started experimenting with that, and I found that lean of peak, the engine runs cooler, it runs much cleaner, it runs far more efficiently, and now I'm saving about 3 gallons an hour, which is, I expect to pay for the GAMI ejectors in about 200 or 300 hours of operation.
Nary a day goes by that I get a letter from a customer with just lauding the praises of the GAMI ejectors, some trip he was able to make, or we had a letter the other day from a guy who was in a holding pattern in his Bonanza. He had about 12 gallons of fuel remaining, and he got into a holding pattern. Well, he just pulled it back and was able to run comfortably on the lean side of peak at about 11 gallons an hour, and was able to sustain the hold period without any problem until the weather cleared below him. Fuel savings, we've heard at least a gallon an hour, anywhere up to 4.5 gallons an hour. And I would qualify that. That would be from a guy who's typically flown his engine fairly rich and now is able to fly his engine fairly lean. The differences can be tremendous. On a twin-engine airplane, if you can save 3 to 4 gallons an hour, that's substantial savings.
You don't have to change the way you fly the airplane to make the GAMI injectors work. They will provide dramatic fuel savings, dramatic reductions in temperatures, and much smoother engine operation without changing anything. Now, just with the GAMI injectors and in normal operating conditions, half a gallon to a gallon per hour per engine. But dramatic savings if you choose to run the engine lean of peak, which is only possible with the GAMI injectors.
So how does Teledyne Continental feel about GAMI ejectors in general, and specifically, how do they feel about operating on the lean side of peak? Generally speaking, Continental does not recommend operating lean of peak, except for those aircraft that come from the factory with balanced induction systems, such as the Piper Malibu and the Mooney Aviation. Because the engines for these aircraft were designed and delivered with improved induction systems, operating lean of peak is not just encouraged, it's actually recommended by Continental. Where GAMI ejectors are concerned, Continental's advice is simply to fly them according to GAMI's instructions. Still skeptical? Well, many pilots are, but only until they take a flight in a GAMI ejector-equipped airplane.
We're going to go fly this airplane right now, and you're going to see this airplane run perfectly smoothly, not only at 25 degrees or 50 degrees lean of peak. This airplane will run smooth well past 100 degrees lean of the peak exhaust gas temperature. So let's go fly, and you can take a look for yourself.
We're passing through 4,000 feet. Got the airplane leaned out to nearly 6 gallons an hour leaner than the manufacturer's recommendation here during the climb. The number one CHT is 370, number two is 365, 3 is 373, number 4 is 383, number 5 is 381, and number 6 is 385. Remarkably uniform set of cylinder head temperatures for air-cooled general aviation engine. One interesting aspect of a really well-balanced engine with respect to its fuel-air ratios. How smooth they'll run, both when they're running on the rich side of peak and when they're running on the lean side of peak. What I'm going to do is I'm going to smoothly move the mixture from up here at 28 gallons an hour down to 15 gallons an hour. And the most important thing you're going to notice is nothing, because nothing's going to happen at all. Here we go. And we begin. We're at 28 gallons an hour, and now we're going to go smoothly to well lean of peak. Right through peak. Here we go. As you can see, there's no needle wiggle, there's no jiggle, there's no vibration in the panel, and yet right now this engine is running on the lean side of peak at nearly full power. Okay, now let's repeat what we just did. We're going to do it kind of slowly this time so you can watch the numbers come up. And here we go. We're leaning, 26.2 gallons, 25 gallons, TIT starting up, now 1,300, down to 24 gallons. Now down to 21 gallons, and the TIT's up to 1,400. Now down to 19 gallons and 1,470 on the TIT. Still leaning, still at full, nearly full power. 18 gallons an hour, we've got a TIT of 1,530. Gone through peak now, and the TIT is starting to drop. Went through peak, we're down at 16 gallons an hour. Down to 15 gallons an hour. We're now at 70 or 80 degrees lean of peak. On the lean side, peak was up at 1,540 or so, and we're now down to 1,450 something. Fuel flow is 14.7 gallons an hour. I've leaned the engine still further, still in nearly a full power climb, and the cylinder head temperature has dropped from 385 or more down to 370, and it's still dropping. That's the hottest cylinder on this airplane. You'll see that we're in nearly a full power climb, and we're all the way down at 15 gallons an hour. The book spec for fuel flow for this engine in a full power climb like this would have this engine running up in the high 20 on the fuel flow range. But just for fun, I'm going to go back to Rich and watch the fuel flow. I'm going to grab the red knob, the mixture knob, and away we go. Going back, Rich. Going back to where a normal mixture setting would be. Somewhere about there for this climb.
By now, you should have a good understanding of the benefits available from replacing your stock fuel injectors with GAMI injectors. So, let's have a little quiz, shall we? Complete the following sentence. The benefits provided by GAMI injectors include A. Increased fuel economy, B. Increased range, C. A smoother running engine, D. More even cylinder head and exhaust gas temperatures, E. Decreased heat-related engine problems, or F. All of the above. All of the answers are correct, but the best response is F. All of the above. And given the superb cost-to-benefit ratio of GAMI injectors, it's not a matter of if an engine will be upgraded, it's only a matter of when. The best time to start enjoying the myriad of benefits available is now. For more information, contact General Aviation Modifications Incorporated in Ada, Oklahoma. And just in case you're wondering, yes, I fly them too. Thanks for watching.